heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
The way that Seth talks about God. So I wanted to read a chapter in the Seth material. In this one, he talks about the God concept and creation, even referring to the three Christs. And it implies a certain level of knowledge about the very beginnings of the universe, and I had to share it with you. The God concept. Simply stated, this is one of the thumbnail passages that explains Seth's concept of God. He is not human, in your terms, though he passed through the human stages. And here the Buddhist myth comes closest to approximating reality. He is not one individual, but an energy gestalt. If you remember what I said about the way in which the universe expands, that it has nothing to do with space, then you may perhaps dimly perceive the existence of a psychic pyramid of interrelated, ever-expanding consciousness that creates, simultaneously and instantaneously, universes and individuals that are given through the gifts of personal perspective, duration, psychic comprehension, intelligence, and eternal validity. This absolute, ever-expanding, instantaneous psychic gestalt, which you may call God, if you prefer, is so secure in its existence that it can constantly break itself down and rebuild itself. Its energy is so unbelievable that it does indeed form all universes. And because its energy is within and behind all universes, systems, and fields, it is indeed aware of each sparrow that falls, for it is each sparrow that falls. As mentioned earlier, however, the Seth material does not ignore deeper questions having to do with the beginning of consciousness and of reality. I really think that this particular material can hold its own with the best metaphysical writings of our time. The purpose is, quite simply, being as opposed to non-being. I am telling you what I know, and there is much I do not know. I know that help must be given one to the other, and that extension and expansion are aids to being. Now, and this will seem like a contradiction in terms, there is non-being. It is a state, not of nothingness, but a state in which probabilities and possibilities are known and anticipated, but blocked from expression. Dimly, through what you would call history, hardly remembered, there was such a state. It was a state of agony, in which the powers of creativity and existence were known, but the ways to produce them were not known. This is the lesson that all that is had to learn, and that could not be taught. This is the agony from which creativity originally was drawn, and its reflection is still seen. Seth uses the word God sparingly. As a rule, he speaks of all that is, or primary energy gestalts. Some of this discussion is bound to be distorted because I must explain it to you in terms of time as you understand it. So I will speak for your benefit of some indescribably distant past in which these events occurred. All that is retains memory of that state, and it serves as a constant impetus, in your terms, toward renewed creativity. Each self, as part of all that is, therefore also retains memory of that state. It is for this reason that each minute consciousness is endowed with the impetus toward survival, change, development, and creativity. It is not enough that all that is, as a primary consciousness gestalt, desires further being, but that each portion of it also carries this determination. Yet the agony itself was used as a means, and the agony itself served as an impetus strong enough so that all that is initiated within itself the means to be. If, and this is impossible, all portions, but the most minute last unit of all that is were destroyed, all that is would continue, for within the smallest portion is the innate knowledge of the whole. All that is protects itself, therefore, and all that is has and is and will create. When I speak of all that is, you must understand my position within it. All that is knows no other. This does not mean that there may not be more to know. It does not know whether or not other psychic gestalts like it may exist. It is not aware of them if they do exist. It is constantly searching. It knows that something else existed before its own primary dilemma, when it could not express itself. It is conceivable, then, that it has evolved, in your terms, so long ago that it has forgotten its origin, that it has developed from still another primary, which has again, in your terms, long since gone its way. So there are answers that I cannot give you, for they are not known anywhere in the system in which we have our existence. We do not know that within this system of our all that is, creation continues, and developments are never still. We can deduce that on still other layers, of which we are unaware, the same is true. The first state of agonized search for expression may have represented the birth throes of all that is, as we know it. Pretend, then, that you possessed within yourself the knowledge of all the world's masterpieces in sculpture and art, that they pulsed as realities within you, but you had no physical apparatus, no knowledge of how to achieve them, that there was neither rock nor pigment nor source of any of these, and you ached with a yearning to produce them. This, on an infinitesimally small scale, will perhaps give you, as an artist, some idea of the agony and impetus that was felt. Desire, wish, and expectation rule all actions and are the basis for all realities. Within all that is, therefore, the wish, desire, and expectation of creativity existed before all other actuality. The strength and vitality of these desires and expectations then became, in your terms, so insupportable that all that is was driven to find the means to produce them. In other words, all that is existed in a state of being, but without the means to find expression for its being. This was the state of agony of which I spoke. Yes, it is doubtful that without this period of contracted yearning, all that is could concentrate its energy sufficiently enough to create the realities that existed in probable suspension within it. The agony and the desire to create represented its proof of its own reality. The feelings, in other words, were adequate proof to all that is that it was. At first, in your terms, all of probable reality existed as nebulous dreams within the consciousness of all that is. Later, the unspecific nature of these dreams grew more particular and vivid. The dreams became recognizable one from the other until they drew the conscious notice of all that is, and with curiosity and yearning, all that is paid more attention to its own dreams. It then purposely gave them more and more detail, and yearned toward this diversity, and grew to love that which was not yet separate from itself. It gave consciousness and imagination to personalities, while they still were but within its dreams. They also yearned it to be actual. Potential individuals, in your terms, had consciousness before the beginning or any beginning as you know it. Then, they clamored to be released into actuality, and all that is, in unspeakable sympathy, sought within itself for the means. In its massive imagination, it understood the cosmic multiplication of consciousness that could not occur within that framework. Actuality was necessary if these probabilities were to be given birth. All that is saw, then, an infinity of probable, conscious individuals and foresaw all possible developments. But they were locked within it until it found the means. This was, in your terms, a primary cosmic dilemma, and one with which it wrestled until all that it was completely involved and enveloped within the cosmic problem. Had it not solved it, all that is would have faced insanity. And there would have been literally a reality without reason and a universe run wild. The pressure came from two sources, from the conscious, but still probable individual selves who found themselves alive in a God's dream, and from the God who yearned to release them. On the other hand, you could say that the pressure existed simply on the part of the God since the creation existed within its dream. But such tremendous power resides in such primary pyramid gestalts that even their dreams are endowed with vitality and reality. This then is the dilemma of any primary pyramid gestalt. It creates reality. It also recognized within each consciousness the massive potential that existed. The means then came to it. It must release the creatures and probabilities from its dream. To do so would give them actuality. However, it also meant losing a portion of its own consciousness, for it was within that portion that they were held in bondage. All that is had to let go. While it thought of these individuals as its creations, it held them as a part of itself and refused them actuality. To let them go was to lose that portion of itself that had created them. Already it could scarcely keep up with the myriad probabilities that began to emerge from each separate consciousness. With love and longing, it let go that portion of itself, and they were free. The psychic energy exploded in a flash of creation. All that is therefore lost a portion of itself in that creative endeavor. All that is loves all that it has created down to the least, for it realizes the dearness and uniqueness of each consciousness which has been wrested from a state, and at such a price. It is triumphant and joyful at each development taken by each consciousness, for this is an added triumph against the first state, and it reveals and takes joy in the slightest creative act of each of its issues. It of itself, and from that state, has given life to infinities of possibilities. From its agony, it found the way to burst forth in freedom through expression, and in so doing gave existence to individualized consciousness. Therefore is it rightfully jubilant, yet all individuals remember their source, and now dream of all that is, as all that is once dreamed of them. And they yearn toward that immense source, and yearn to set it free and give it actuality through their own creations. The motivating force is still all that is, but individuality is no illusion. Now, in the same way, do you give freedom to the personality fragments within your own dreams, and for the same reason, and you create for the same reason, and within each of you is the memory of that primal agony, that urge to create and free all probable consciousness into actuality. I have been sent to help you, and others have been sent through the centuries of your time, for as you develop, you also form new dimensions, and you will help others. These connections between you and all that is can never be severed, and its awareness is so delicate and focused that its attention is indeed directed with a prime creator's love to each consciousness. This session needs reading many times, for there are implications not at first obvious. In other words, the whole frame of reality, according to Seth, includes far more than reincarnation and development within the physical systems that we know. One of the most important points, I think, is that God is not static himself. This overall pyramid gestalt is not static. Most of your God concepts deal with static God. And here is one of your main theological difficulties. The awareness and experiences of this gestalt constantly changes and grows. There is no static God. When you say, this is God, then God is already something else. I am using the term God for simplicity's sake. All portion of all that is are constantly changing, enfolding, and unfolding. All that is, seeking to know itself, constantly creates new versions of itself. For this, seeking itself is a creative activity and the core of all creation.
There was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composed